What's up everyone, it's Kelly and today I've got a video I'm very excited to share with you. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time, and that is comparing all my cool toned purple cream nail polishes. And I know that that is a very specific type of polish, but it turns out I actually have a bunch of them. If you don't know this about me, purple is my favorite nail polish color to wear. I do tend to prefer cool toned purples, but I also enjoy a warm toned purple as well. This past season, we have gotten a lot of really beautiful cool toned purples, and it prompted my desire to share a video comparing all of the ones I could find where they pretty much look the same in the bottle, but they do have some slight differences. I do have some other cool toned purples, but I was specifically thinking within the realm of medium cool toned purple creams, which again I know is very, very specific, but I didn't want to go into like eggplant purple territory or into soft lavender territory either. So we're just kind of sitting in that middle range here, and a variety of brands have done really beautiful cool tone purples. So yeah, like I said, this is specifically cream finishes. We don't have shimmers, we don't have glitters, we don't have other exciting finishes here today. I really just wanted to do almost like a dupe comparison. So you'll see all of them next to each other at the end of the video, and we'll do a little comparison. And also one quick note I do want to mention, some of these polishes are older and they have a little bit of discoloration in the bottle. That's just because sometimes if polishes aren't shaken up, a little bit of the pigment separates, but it doesn't affect the color in it. It just needs to be shaken up a little bit. I also want to make a quick note that this video is going to have a lot of repetition in it. We are working with 17 polishes from different brands that are all the same finish, that are almost the same exact color. So you're going to hear me repeat a lot of phrases like cool toned purple cream because that's what I'm reviewing today. So if you're not a huge fan of the repetition, this might not be the video for you. Like I said, I do have a comparison at the end, but what I want to do in this video is go over more about the formula, really discuss the nuance and the difference between each color, which again is very subtle. So like I said, there's going to be some repetition, so just something to keep in mind. But before we get into the swatches, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. If you have a specific skill you're trying to learn, Skillshare is the perfect place to start. They've got classes in graphic design, photography, illustration, marketing, productivity, lifestyle, and so many more. It's ad-free so you can stay focused, and new premium classes are launched every week, so there's always something new to discover. I've been a member of Skillshare for a couple of years now, and I find so much value in their classes. I really can't recommend it enough. And now the first 1,000 people to use my link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So definitely check that out. I will link it down in the description. So thank you, Skillshare. And now back to the cool toned purples. So the first shade that I want to talk about is Orly Synthetic Symphony. And this is actually the inspiration behind this whole video. And this is really the polish that I wanted to do all of my dupe comparisons of, because this to me is the ideal cool toned purple cream finish. It's got an amazing formula. It's almost one coat coverage. It has this very vibrant saturation to it where it almost looks like a neon. And honestly, I think it looks even better in person than it does in video. Every time I wear this polish, I get compliments, I get stopped by strangers, and I just think it's really a stunning color. And I have noticed that whenever I wear a cool toned purple in my videos, people always ask if it's this one, and that is kind of why I wanted to do this whole video, because I wanted to see just how similar these other polishes are to it. So let's move on to the next one and find out. Next up, we have a polish from Morgan Taylor. This one is called Powers of Persuasion. This is actually a relatively recent one. It was from their Clueless Summer 2022 collection, and this was another reason why I wanted to do this video, because I thought this looked very similar to Synthetic Symphony when I was swatching it. I would say that this one is slightly paler and very slightly cooler toned. I think that Morgan Taylor is a very underrated brand overall, and I think they're very beginner friendly, and I especially love their brush. This polish does dry down to a slightly matte finish, which is actually something that's a little bit common when you're working with more neon pigments, but of course you can use a top coat over it just to make it glossy again. Very good coverage here, almost one coat, but I did end up doing 2. Next up, we have a shade from Holo Taco. This one is called I'm Live. This was part of the recent collaboration with Julian Solomita, and a lot of people were requesting a comparison of this one to Synthetic Symphony. So again, we have many reasons to do this video. So this one I would say is a slightly dustier version of the cool toned polishes. I wouldn't exactly put this in the neon category. It does lean a little bit on the cooler side than the ones we've seen so far, and it was a little bit less opaque, especially in that first coat, but I was still able to get full coverage in 2. If you have longer nails, you might need a 3rd for this, but also something to keep in mind, this was a limited edition polish and I'm not sure that it's going to be available again, but I did want to include it in this review because I've gotten a lot of requests for that. Next up, we have a polish from China Glaze. This one is called I've Got a Blue Attitude, which is a pretty ironic name considering it is a purple polish. So this one is actually an older polish. I do have the old brush in here, but if you buy a newer bottle of it, it should have the new wider flat brush. So this one I would say is a little bit warmer than the Holo Taco one, but it actually has a very subtle blue shimmer running throughout. I would still say this is very much a cream finish because it's just barely there, but I think it makes the polish overall look a little bit more cool toned, and I think it also gives it a little bit more of a bluish hue. This is another one that I would say is not really in neon territory. I think it probably has the same amount of saturation as the Holo Taco one, but I think with that shimmer in there, it just makes it look a little bit brighter. And again, this one was a little bit less opaque, but it was still a 2-coater on my short nails. Next up, we have Starrily Gravity. This is actually what I'm wearing on my nails right now, and full disclosure, this is a collaboration shade that I made with Starrily. This was part of our winter holiday 2021 set. So obviously I love cool tone purples a lot and I really wanted to make my own. I would say this one is a little bit deeper than the others. Again, not really a neon shade, but it is still pretty saturated and it's very cool toned. One thing I absolutely love about this polish is the Starrily formula in general is great and I think it's so opaque. This one is on me fully a 1-coater. I am actually wearing 1 coat on my nails right now, so definitely very impressive coverage on this one, but I don't know, maybe I'm biased. Moving on, we have Zoya Skipper, and this one actually does have a little bit of that neon coloring to it. It's very vibrant, very saturated. It has a nice cool tone to it. I would say this is probably the same level of warmth as the China Glaze polish, but because it doesn't have the blue shimmer in there, it does look slightly warmer. And this one is also a little bit lighter of a shade. Again, it does dry down to a slightly matte finish, which is not surprising because it does have that neon vibrance to it. The coverage on this one though is not great. 2 coats is actually not enough for me, so I do need a 3rd coat with my nails at their current length. So definitely not ideal, but still a very pretty color. Next up, we have Orly Make a Splash. This was actually in collaboration with Lisa Frank, and they released this shortly after Synthetic Symphony, and there were a lot of questions about how these two compared, so I'm glad I finally have a comparison to show you all. I would actually say that this one is really on the warmer end, still on the cool toned purple spectrum, but it's pretty warm for a cool toned purple. This one is actually less opaque than Synthetic Symphony, but I am able to get full coverage in 2 coats, but it's only just barely there, so if you have long nails, you might need a 3rd for this one as well. And again, it's very vibrant coloring. It's got that neon saturation to it. Next up, I wanted to include Orly Crash the Party. This was from their very new summer 2022 collection, and this one I would actually say is more of a neutral cream purple. But again, I have gotten a lot of questions on how it compares with the other Orlys that are cool toned purples, so I'm just going to show you a quick comparison of the 3. This one is definitely the warmest and Synthetic Symphony is definitely the coolest tone, and this is the warmest shade that I am comparing today. But again, very good formula. It's opaque in 2 coats. It's really nice, easy application. Next up, we have Picture Polish Boho. This one is also what I would consider to be a neutral purple, but I wanted to include it because I think it's very similar to the Orly polish from this summer. I would say this one is slightly dustier. It does not have that neon effect to it. And again, it is a little bit warmer tone because I would say it's more of a neutral purple, but the opacity on this one is absolutely incredible. It's almost 1 coat coverage on me. I'm showing you 2, but it really has a very great formula. And I think this is also a great one for nail art. Next up, we have Ice Cream Nails Bad Berry. There is actually another word attached to the word bad, but we are a family-friendly channel here. We do not curse. But yes, just something to keep in mind. There is a small curse on the name of this polish. But of course, I did want to include it because it is a cool toned purple. It has that slightly neon finish to it. I would say this is actually basically the neon version of Picture Polish Boho. It's a very similar coloring. I would say maybe slightly cooler toned, and when I look at it, I definitely consider it to be a cool toned purple, but compared to some of the others, it does look a lot warmer. I just think Ice Cream Nails in general makes really great neons. This one is fun. I believe this was part of their scented collection because it does smell like grapes. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I eat grapes all the time, and I feel like grapes do not smell like artificial grape flavoring, but when I smell this smells to me like artificial grape flavoring. But why does artificial grape not smell like what grapes smell like in real life? Questions to ponder. Next up, we have OPI Mariachi Makes My Day. This one, every time I wear it, people think that this is Synthetic Symphony, which I think is pretty ironic because this is a fairly deep polish, definitely not neon, very cool toned. And honestly, I think that this is a type of shade that OPI does really well. They make a ton of really beautiful, deep, cool purples, but they're all a little bit darker than this one. So this is as dark as I wanted to go for this video. I didn't want to verge into like the territory where it looks eggplant or almost looks black in lower lighting. I really wanted to focus on these distinctly cool toned purple shades, but of course I did want to include it because it's a polish I wear a lot and get asked about a lot. Moving on, we have another Zoya. This one is Kiara, and this is another deeper polish. This one is slightly warmer than the OPI, but still again very distinctly cool toned. I just feel like in general these very deep toned purples always have such a nice formula, so I really enjoy wearing them, and I love that this is still very distinctly purple. It doesn't look black in lower lightings. You can still see that color coming through. Also, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but with all of my Zoyas, I do like to use the Z wide brush. They come by default with a round skinny brush, but I don't really have the easiest time using those, so I prefer the wide flat brush. So I always switch out my brush with Zoyas. Next up, we have another China Glaze. This one is Mix and Mingle, and this is another old shade, again, before they switched their brush to the new wide flat brush. So I do have the old round skinny brush in here. And this one is actually very similar to Zoya Kiara, but it is a little bit lighter and it's a lot more sheer. The first coat of this one is not opaque at all. The second coat just barely gives me enough coverage. So I did end up doing 3 coats for this swatch. And again, just really not ideal considering there are so many very similar shades that have better formulas. We have so many 2-coaters and even 1-coaters that I just don't really find myself reaching for this one. Next up, we have Zoya Serenity. This one I would consider to be a medium light. The next few polishes are all of this type of lightness, but again, I didn't want to get too light either because I wanted to really focus on these medium tones. This one is a little bit less saturated. It has that slight dustiness to it, but again, very nice, very cool toned. And it's another one that's fairly sheer, but I am able to get full coverage in 2 coats. Honestly, I think that might be because I use the Z wide brush, because when I'm working with a thinner brush, I have a hard time reaching full opacity. So actually that might be why I had a little bit of a hard time with Mix and Mingle. Next up, we have OPI Lost My Bikini in Molokini, another shade that people always think is Synthetic Symphony online. And again, this one is definitely on the medium light side. It does actually end up a little bit darker than it looks in the bottle. And it's also significantly dustier. It really has that sort of paleness to it rather than that neon brightness. And it's very, very cool toned. I would say this is one of the more cool toned ones out of the ones I'm reviewing. But this one is a go-to for me. I think it's such a beautiful shade, and obviously I love cool tone purples, so this one is always within reach. Next up, we have China Glaze Left My Heart in Havana, and this one I would say is a little bit warmer toned, but still very distinctly cool toned. Again, it's on that medium light side, definitely getting into lighter cool toned polishes here. But even though this one is light, it still has a lot of saturation to it. It almost feels like a neon pastel color, and it has such nice opacity. It's 2 coats for full coverage, but it feels nice and thick on, but it's not too thick. It's still easy to apply. One thing I noticed about this one though is that it is pretty streaky. Even if I shake it up, I sometimes get little streaks on my nails, but honestly, that is not noticeable unless I am doing a video. When I'm looking at my nails, I have to be very close up in order to notice any streakiness. And the final shade and also the lightest shade that I'm sharing with you today is Picture Polish Wisteria. So this is definitely heading into lavender territory, but I saw it and I just felt like it was so similar to the last few shades that I really wanted to include it in this video. I have to say, it's very hard to know where to stop with these comparisons because I feel like I could have found at least 20 more polishes that kind of fit the bill, but wouldn't necessarily be possible dupes for Synthetic Symphony. But I also just want to be able to show you polishes that are similar to the polishes that are similar that I'm showing you, if that makes any sense. But anyway, back to this one. Like I said, it's a very light shade. Again, it feels like a neon pastel to me, and this one definitely has a little bit of a warmer tone to it, but it still feels like a cool toned purple overall. It still has that nice blue undertone to it, and it's got really good coverage for how light it is. It is 2-coat coverage, but it feels like it's almost there in the first coat. I definitely don't need 3 coats for this one on my nail length at least, so I'm always really impressed with the formula of this one. Very beginner friendly. So yeah, those are all of my medium cool toned purple cream polishes. The more I say that, the more I feel like this is such a very specific niche of video. So hopefully there's somebody else out there in the world who is interested in this comparison, because personally this is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. I just wanted to see all of them laid out next to each other so I can really point out the differences. But all that said, I have to tell you, I can't get enough cool tone purples, so I hope we get more. And I honestly can justify owning almost every one of these. The only ones I really don't reach for are the 3-coaters, but all of these I really enjoy wearing. I think they're so beautiful. I just can't get enough cool toned purple. So yeah, if you enjoyed this very specific video, please give it a thumbs up. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And if you want to see more comparisons like this, I've really been enjoying doing them because it's just kind of fun to go back and look through my existing collection and see what polishes are similar to newer polishes that are coming out. I was thinking maybe we could do scattered silver holo polishes next, or maybe hollow toppers next, or maybe red linear hollows. I have a lot of those as well. But yeah, definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments. We can chat about it. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. I do lots of nail polish related content, and I post on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. And I also have a second channel for behind the scenes stuff, and right now I am posting weekly on there. And I also have a podcast. It's not nail polish related, but it is related to nerdy film, so if you enjoy that sort of thing, I will link it down in the description. And of course, a huge shout out to my Cosmic Admirals on Patreon, Amanda M, Rocket Man's daughter, and Paola. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye. Today's fun fact question comes from Patreon supporter Rocket Man's daughter, and Rocket Man's daughter wants to know, not sure if you're a beach girl, I definitely am, but will you miss being close to the shore after you move? So if you haven't heard, I am currently in the process of doing a cross-country move. I'm talking about it a lot on my vlog channel, so if you want to be a part of the packing and the adventure, definitely check that out. But yeah, so I currently live in New Jersey. I was born and raised here. I have spent the majority of my life here, and interestingly enough, I did grow up down the shore. Basically where the Jersey Shore was filmed is where I grew up, and I was always really close to the beach. In fact, my high school was only a few blocks away from the beach, so sometimes after I got my driver's license, I would go there before school, and I would definitely go there a lot after school, and there was a Dunkin' Donuts right there, so I would just be sipping my Dunkin' Donuts and looking at the ocean. It was always very nice. But I actually don't live too close to the beach anymore, and weirdly enough, I just haven't been to the beach in a while, maybe once or twice a summer now. And I think what happened in 2020 is a huge part of the reason why I kind of stopped traveling back and forth. It's really not too far. I feel like that just kind of changed, you know, my habits a little bit. I want to say yes, I will miss the beach a lot, but I also just feel like I haven't been going as much as I used to when I was growing up. So that's kind of interesting. But Las Vegas is like 4 or 5 hours away from LA and San Diego. So I feel like if I want to go to the beach, I can just take a little road trip there. So I'm glad I won't be too terribly far from the ocean. I don't know if I could handle being like in the middle of the US, because I do like to be relatively near the water. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a complicated question, and I don't know that I really gave that much of an answer, but hopefully that gave you some insight. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye.